Let's go Bills! I don't know about you, but I'm counting down the days, or better yet, the hours, until the new NFL season kicks off. Yeah, I know, there are still a few months to go, but my red and blue heart is already beating with excitement. That game day feeling is starting to build up, and if you're part of the Bills Mafia, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Our team is looking sharp, well-structured, and ready to soar high. You can feel the momentum growing, and honestly, it's hard not to get pumped. Behind the scenes, there's a lot going on. Meetings, decisions, moves, and trust me, many of these things could shape the path of our upcoming season in a big way. Today, I want to dive into some of these hot topics that have been making waves in the Bills community. If you live and breathe this team like I do, you're going to want all the details. But before we jump into the news, hit that like button, but only if you've been a Bills fan for at least 19 years. Just kidding, kind of. It's honestly amazing to see fans of all ages here. Some of you were at the games back in the 70s, and that's just incredible. Mad respect to all of you who've been carrying this passion for decades. You're the soul of this franchise. And hey, if you can, drop this in the comments. Go Bills! Let's keep getting stronger. Let's spread that energy. Did the Buffalo Bills just quietly reveal the blueprint for their most defining season yet? It's not something said with pomp and flash. But if you've been paying attention, and we have, then the pieces are starting to fall into place, and the implications are huge. Forget surface-level analysis. Today, we're unpacking exclusive insider revelations and telling you what the national media hasn't. This team might be on the verge of transformation, and it's coming from unexpected places. So buckle up, Bills Mafia, because what's really happening at One Bills Drive and beyond could change everything you think you know about the 2025 Buffalo Bills. Let's kick this off with what sparked a tidal wave of debate. ESPN's Mina Kimes pointed to man coverage as the Bills' Achilles heel. According to her, and it was echoed by our own analysis, Josh Allen's QBR against zone coverage ranked second in the NFL last season. But versus man, ninth. Not bad, but not elite. Here's where it gets eye-opening. Buffalo faced the highest percentage of man coverage in the entire league last year. And the data backs up why. When 133 NFL receivers with at least 75 routes against man coverage were analyzed, the highest-ranked Bill was Keon Coleman at 66th. Yes, 66th. That means not a single Bills receiver cracked the top 50. That tells a painful story of route inefficiency and a lack of reliable man-beating weapons. And it's not just media chatter. Internally, there's an acknowledgement that this is a problem. But is it the biggest problem? According to Locked on Bills host Joe Marino, absolutely not. He says the defense, and specifically the defensive line, has been the real failure in recent postseasons. And the stats and postseason tape support that. Route running might get the headlines, but if the D-line keeps disappearing when it matters most, none of it will matter. And this offseason, Buffalo's making moves that scream urgency. Which brings us to training camp. While other franchises flirt with relocation or upgrading to flashy local facilities, the Bills are doubling down on tradition with St. John Fisher. Pete Gwelly, the team's COO, made it crystal clear in a recent interview, Rochester is here to stay. The Bills not only finalized a deal for this season but are actively working on a long-term extension. It's still perfect for us, Gwelly said, emphasizing the isolation and team bonding benefits of going away to camp. But don't be fooled, this isn't universally loved. Marino was honest that players likely hate dorm life and being away from their families. But the coaching staff? They see culture and chemistry as currency. And in a tight AFC race, that edge could matter. Then there's Hard Knocks. Yes, HBO is coming to Buffalo. But what stories will steal the spotlight? Marino sees three main arcs unfolding. First, Dalton Kincaid, the fun-loving, high-potential tight end with more to prove after a promising rookie season. Second, the always charismatic Josh Allen. Marino says the world's about to learn just how playful and magnetic he really is, a golden retriever in cleats. And finally, Travis Clayton, the international rugby convert from England. You can bet HBO will play up the fish-out-of-water storyline, especially with his raw but explosive potential. Meanwhile, the defense is undergoing a philosophical shift. Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop are stepping into the safety roles vacated by legends Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. But don't expect a carbon copy. Rapp is a zone specialist. Bishop thrives in man and downhill roles. They complement each other, but they're not interchangeable like Hyde and Poyer. Marino says they're both solid but acknowledges it's going to take time for them to develop chemistry anywhere near their predecessors. Then there's the D-line overhaul. Lurking quietly under the radar is a depth chart with enormous potential and even more questions. Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, and A.J. Epenesa are the locks. But the new names? They're the wild cards. Joey Bosa, T.J. Sanders, Dwayne Carter, Deion Walker, Landon Jackson, and others. Marino believes 4 out of this group must emerge as relative hits to build an 8-man rotation. It's not about all-stars at every position. It's about fresh legs, situational flexibility, and production. And for Boza, the expectations are sky high. If he hits his ceiling, the entire dynamic of this front shifts. If he doesn't, the pressure falls on the rookies, and that's a lot to ask. And if you're wondering about Larry Ogunjobi, no, he's not going anywhere. Despite being suspended, he's locked in with guaranteed money in 3 void years that keep him on the books into 2026. You don't eat that cap hit for a guy who's getting cut. Brandon Beane knew about the suspension and still moved forward with the deal. That says everything. But what about the names we're not seeing on the roster anymore? Why are so many former Bills, Von Miller, Rasul Douglas, Amari Cooper, Quentin Jefferson, and Jordan Phillips, still unsigned? Marino didn't sugarcoat it. These are aging players, many past their prime, most coming off the worst seasons of their careers. The tape doesn't lie. It's not about name recognition anymore. The league has moved on, even if the headlines haven't. And then there's the curious case of Mac Hollins. The do-it-all wideout, gunner, and blocker is gone, signed by New England, but his impact is still being felt. Marino broke it down. Yes, Hollins did a lot, but none of it can't be replaced. In fact, the Bills are betting on guys like Jalen Virgil, Cam Lewis, and Josh Palmer to step up in those hybrid roles. Maybe the most telling part? The receiver room is younger, faster, and more complete now than it was last year. And with a quarterback like Josh Allen, that matters. Everything is pointing toward a team that's not rebuilding, but recalibrating with urgency. New faces, new schemes, new stories, but the same pressure. Get over the hump. The AFC window isn't open forever, and the time is now. Every player, every scheme tweak, every decision, this is about maximizing Allen's prime. So, now I want to hear from you, Bills Mafia. Is fixing the man coverage issue really the key to the Super Bowl? Or do you agree that the D-line is the real X-factor holding this team back? What do you make of the new faces on defense? And do you trust this retooled front seven to deliver when it counts? Sound off in the comments and let's get this conversation going, because this season, everything's on the line. And just when you think the buzz might be cooling off, it ramps right back up with one of the most critical factors flying under the radar, the safety net, or potential lack thereof, in Buffalo's revamped defensive secondary. Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop may be the penciled-in starters, but they are stepping into legendary shoes. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer weren't just dependable, they were elite, adaptable, and seamlessly interchangeable. Their communication and chemistry gave the Bills a defensive backbone for years. Rapp and Bishop, they bring talent, no doubt, but they're not mirror images of what came before. Rapp thrives in zone coverage and excels when playing deep. He's more cerebral, positioning-oriented, or read-and-react safety. Bishop, on the other hand, is a heat-seeking missile. He's a downhill player, a box safety, a man-coverage defender on tight ends. In essence, these two are more specialists than the all-around forces Buffalo has relied on in the past. This might not be a bad thing. It could signal a philosophical shift in how Sean McDermott builds his back-end coverage, but it's a significant departure. The question is, will their contrasting styles complement each other or expose vulnerabilities?